Good morning, everybody. I wanted to welcome you to the second day of the 10th SWIB conference. I hope you had enjoyed your evening yesterday in Bonn and fresh again. We have to do a slight switch of the schedule because our keynote speaker, Mia Rich, has not arrived yet. We suppose she's stuck in traffic somewhere. And so I would ask Karen Smith-Yoshimura to do the first talk. We are very happy to have her here as a speaker. She has a long experience as the senior program officer at OCLC Research, where she had been working with research institutions for more than 25 years, in particular to provide multilingual access to resources. And in the last 5 years, in particular, she was collaborating with many experts in the field on identifiers, on authorities, and on linked data. So, please.
I'm not so tall. All right. Yes, so I'm in the OCLC Research Small Office in California, the United States, and for the last 4 years have been conducting international linked data surveys for implementers. And where's the key? This is for you. Yeah, okay, this is for you. Okay, so just some background. The impetus for these international linked data surveys for implementers were discussions with the OCLC Research Library Partners metadata managers who were aware of a number of linked data projects or services, but were afraid that they were missing something, that surely there were more out there somewhere. So in consultation with colleagues, we developed a survey instrument, which we beta tested with some early linked data implementers, and that we conducted the survey first in 2014. The target audiences were those who had already implemented a linked data service or project or had plans to do so, or were in the process of doing so. Questions were asked about publishing linked data and consuming linked data. And I published my analysis of the results in a series of blog posts on our Hanging Together blog. So one of the first criticisms we received from the results was that it did not include some responses from well-known early linked data implementers like the National Libraries of France and Germany. So we repeated the survey in 2015, and I published those results in the DLib magazine. So then, that was 3 years ago, we were curious what might have changed since then, so we repeated the survey again in April and May of this year. So for those of you who responded, many, 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 many thanks, because I know there were a lot of questions. So, can I do it? So a total of 143 institutions responded to one or more surveys, either one's publishing linked data, consuming linked data, or both in the 3 surveys that we conducted. This chart shows a breakdown of the institutions responding to one or more surveys. 24 institutions, that represents 17%, responded to all 3 surveys. And 35, that's about 24%, responded to only the 2018 survey. So of the 81 institutions that responded to the 2018 survey, 35, that's 24%, had not responded to the previous surveys. So when I make comparisons between surveys, keep in mind that the respondent pool differs from year to year. So this is the geographic breakdown of the 143 responding institutions that had reported at least one linked data implementation. U.S. respondents numbered 60, or 42% of the total, and that was followed by Spain, the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, Canada, and Germany. Respondents from the United States in the 2018 survey also accounted for 42% of the total, with 34 institutions, followed by Spain, the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, Canada, Germany, and Norway. And these, for this audience, are the 3 from Germany who responded to the survey. We also categorized the responding institutions by type. We were successful in our attempt to solicit responses from more national libraries in the 2015 survey. That's the cluster of bars to the second to your left. And the number of national libraries responding to the 2018 survey were almost the same. Given that the survey was generally distributed primarily on networks used by libraries, most respondents to all 3 surveys tended to be from the library domain, the research libraries and the national libraries, the top 2, the 2 clusters on your far left. The biggest change was, for the first time, we received responses from service providers, those which provide linked data services for their customers. Of the 81 institutions responding to the 2018 survey, they described a total of 104 linked data products or services, compared to 71 institutions responding to the 2015 survey, where 112 were described. Now, some caveats again on the comparisons. Institutions who had responded to a previous survey did not always describe the same linked data implementation. Of the 104 linked data projects or services described, only 42 had been described previously. And even when the same project or service was described, sometimes the respondent differed with different responses. And some respondents did not answer every question. So 75% of the linked data implementations described in 2018 are in production, slightly higher than the 67% reported in 2015. 40% of the linked data implementations described in 2018 have been in production for more than 4 years. In both the 2015 and 2018 surveys, most implementations both consume and publish linked data. Relatively few only publish linked data, and the number of those published only linked data implementations has decreased, or at least not reflected in the responses. More respondents reported that their linked data implementation was successful or mostly successful in 2018 compared to 2015, 56% compared to 41%. Fewer didn't know yet if their projects were successful, as they were in the early stage or pre-implementation stage. Comments from the respondents whose linked data project or service had been in production for at least 4 years included the following indicators of success. Usage. Most respondents noted substantial increases in usage over the years and more contributors. Data reuse. Other applications make use of their linked data implementations, and they also note an increase in the number of bulk downloads. Interoperability. Their linked data service provides access to their other resources. User satisfaction. Linked data offers user a richer experience that is much more contextualized and interrelated. One pointed to better support of multilingualism by fetching multilingual labels from linked data vocabularies. And one noted that their happy users are probably unaware that the service is based on linked data. Influence. The success of a project gains attention and libraries on what's possible. They influence other initiatives and moves the discussions on linked data in their library community. And finally, professional development. Even if absent metrics demonstrating linked data's value to others, linked data projects still provide professional development for staff. So most respondents with linked data implementations in production either did not know the average number of requests that their linked data implementation received daily over the previous 6 months, or did not keep or have access to those statistics. So of the minority that do keep these statistics, these are the 8 linked data implementations most used as measured by the average number of requests per day in the 2018 survey. All reported over 100,000 requests per day, and all have been in production over 4 years. And all had responded to the 2015 survey as well. So there's the American Numismatic Society's Numisma, a thesaurus of numismatic concepts, the Bibliothèque Nationale de France's Data BNFR, which provides access to the BNF's collections and is a hub for among different resources. Europeana, aggregating metadata for digital objects from museums, archives, and audiovisual archives across Europe. The Library of Congress's linked data services, which provide access to over 50 vocabularies and receives 500,000 to 1 million requests a day. The National Diet Library's NDL search provides access to bibliographic data from Japanese libraries, archives, museums, and academic research institutions. Your North Rhine-Westphalian Library Service Center, HBZ, Linked Open Data Service provides access to bibliographic resources, libraries, and related organizations and authority data. OCLC's Virtual International Authority File aggregates 50 authority files from different countries and regions, and OCLC's WorldCat Linked Data provides experimental access to catalogs of over 400 million bibliographic records in linked data form. Now, the 2 I've circled here reported that their usage has more than doubled over the last 3 years. The key motivations for publishing linked data has been pretty much unchanged. The very top reason is to expose their data to larger audiences on the web, as well as demonstrate what could be done with data sets as linked data. Because some 2015 survey respondents had noted the need to publish linked data in order to consume it as an other option, we offered that in the 2018 survey, and it became the 4th most commonly used, the 4th most commonly cited reason. Given the relatively large number of libraries among the respondents, no surprise that descriptive, bibliographic, and authority data are the most common types of data published in both surveys, with slight variations in numbers. Data about people were common enough in the other response in the 2015 survey that we added it as an option in 2018. It tied for 4th with ontologies and vocabularies. There were also slight increases in the number of linked data implementations publishing digital collections and geographic data in 2018. We can see more differences in the RDF vocabularies and ontologies used in the last 3 years. This chart shows the top 8 reported in 2018 used by at least 20% of the respondents as compared to 2015. We observed substantial increases in schema.org and BibFrame, with decreases in responses to SCOS and Friend of a Friend in particular. The most common serialization in linked data continues to be RDF XML. The most visible difference between the 2 surveys is an uptick in JSON LD and a decrease in RDF-A. The top 6 barriers cited by the 2018 survey respondents were almost the same as in 2015, with steep learning curve for staff and inconsistency in legacy data, the top 2. Lack of resources was added as an option, again, as one of the other responses in the 2015 survey, and that tied with little documentation. Establishing the links was the 4th top barrier in 2015, and it dropped to rank 6 in 2018. So let's move to consuming linked data. The top 2 reasons for consuming linked data are pretty much the same among respondents to both surveys: provide users with a richer experience and enhance our own data by consuming linked data from other resources. But there are drops in the motivations for improving the search engine optimization, more effective internal metadata management, and greater accuracy and scope in our search results. Now, these are the top 10 linked data sources consumed by the 2018 survey respondents compared to 2015. The biggest change, there's Wikidata again. The biggest change was this surge in consuming Wikidata, more than 4 times that as reported in 2015. We also see big increases in consuming worldcat.org and ISNI. The asterisks here indicate the ones which also responded to the survey. These could be considered successful publishers of linked data by the degree to which others consume the data provided. So I was curious. I looked at the respondents that included Wikidata as a linked data source in 2018, but did not use it in 2015. They contributed to that surge in the use of Wikidata in the previous slide. They include a couple of the most accessed implementations cited previously, and some of the ones that added Wikidata as a linked data source includes ACID, AECID Digital Library, which aggregates resources about Latin America, Islam, and Arabic countries, the Digital Public Library of America, which provides national-scale aggregation of cultural heritage metadata, the Ignacio Larramendi Foundation's Polymath Virtual Library, which aggregates works of the most important Hispanic polymaths and establishes relationships among them, the National Libraries of Spain's Datos, providing a semantic view of bibliographic and authority data, and OCLC's faceted application of subject terminology, or FAST, which is derived from the Library of Congress subject headings to make the schema easier to understand, control, apply, and use. And finally, the Pratt Institute's Linked Jazz, a research project to uncover meaningful connections to the personal and professional lives of jazz musicians. The National Library of Finland noted, Wikidata is becoming more and more significant for cultural heritage organizations, including our library. So the list for the top 7 barriers to consuming linked data are still top barrier: matching, disambiguating, and aligning source data and linked data sources in both surveys. The biggest difference is the uptick in the number of responses pointing to unstable endpoints and service reliability. Now, I noted earlier that 40% of the linked data implementations described in the 2018 survey had been in production for over 4 years, and several of which of those appeared as the source's most consumed slide. I've selected a few examples from the 47 linked data implementations described that have been put into production since the last survey. Now, this isn't so easy because, of course, these are meant for machines to read and not humans like me. But nevertheless, the National Library of Finland's service to access the bibliographic database has been in production for less than 1 year. It noted, creating this service has been a major milestone and makes it clear what the possibilities and limitations are. The National Library of Hungary first converted its Hungarian common catalog into linked data, and then provided this new service less than a year ago to provide access to the electronic library through Sparkle queries. COBUS is a collaboration among the libraries in Turin. It provides linked data access to their shared library collections and was launched in December 2017. It noted it has been a great success by making their collections visible and is one of the very few such projects in Italy. In the United States, Carnegie Hall has released its performance history data from 1891 through the end of 2015 as linked data, and that was launched less than a year ago. And the Getty Conservation Institute collaborated with the World Monuments Fund to develop Arches, a geospatially enabled software platform for cultural heritage inventory and management. So, what are the advice? We got a lot of advice from the implementers, so this is just a few of the advice. learning from others, take advantage of the many other examples of good practice and information related to linked data. Read as widely as possible, include the W3C recommendations, and consult with community experts. Focus on your use cases, match your use cases and user needs with what the data can provide, and be prepared to work with multiple data models. Define the scope and requirements before staging any work. Collaborate with others rather than doing everything yourself. Try to integrate your linked data into your daily workflows. Analyze what legacy data should be converted. Don't think that everything needs to be converted. Never underestimate the amount of data cleanup that will be required. I should put this one first. From personal experience, this one takes a lot of time. Use existing identifiers and ontologies. Use the identifiers already created by authoritative linked data sources wherever possible, and create your own. Select linked data sources by both the content and number of links to other linked data sources. In other words, take advantage of the linked data hubs. And be prepared to iterate based on your user feedback. And don't expect benefits until only after you've reached scale. So what are the implications from all this? Well, first, we see the emergence of service providers, and that might mean that this will lead to fewer individual institutions launching their own linked data projects. Among the 2018 survey respondents, 37% relied at least partially on a system vendor, corporation, or external consultants or developers to implement their linked data project or service, and several institutions were clients of providers who also responded to the survey. 42% of the new responses to the survey, not described in previous surveys, were outside the library domain. This leads to an idea that the proliferation of linked data is no longer just in one domain, but across domains. And most linked data projects and services still remain experimental or educational in nature. Observes the Oslo Public Library. As far as I can see, Oslo Public Library is still the first and only library with its production catalog and original cataloging workflows done directly with linked data. One of the respondents noted, nevertheless, this is the future of data for libraries, and the longer we wait, the further behind we're going to fall. So if you're interested, we've added all the responses to the 2018 survey to this Excel workbook. It's publicly available at this URL, oc.lc/ld-surveys-responses. And there you can do your own analysis of whatever you like, or filter and look at the detailed responses for the institutions that are most like yours. And that's it.
Thank you very much, Karen.
I think I kept it under 25 minutes.
And other questions?
And I'll just say, I know I spoke a little fast, but when you have access to the PowerPoint, all of the speaker notes are there, and so you can read it at your leisure instead of trying, what the hell did she say? But any questions?
I have a question on one detail, perhaps very preoccupied because I'm in authorities and knowledge organization systems. I wondered that there is a relatively low percentage of use of linked data in this field. And
In where?
in the field of authorities and knowledge organization systems, which to me, it would be a very natural thing to use this. And I wonder if you have ideas why this is.
Well, actually, I focused on Wikidata because that was the biggest change between the two surveys, but the top two linked data sources cited that were consumed were in fact the Library of Congress, ID.gov, which is all these authority files, and the Virtual International Authority file. So those are being consumed.
Okay, so it's I took this from one of the first slides. So it's different what people answer to different questions on the same.
Yeah, I mean,
you're right. This is, of course, we have is only authority and Library of Congress probably.
Well, those are the most consumed, and because they're so consumed, I think there's less need for others to publish their own local ontologies because they're represented in these hubs. So for publishing, you're right, the authority data publishing is below bibliographic and descriptive, but that's also because individual institutions are more likely to use other people authority hubs for authorities rather than publishing their own. So the publishing authorities tend to be the national libraries. And the research libraries tend to rely on those national libraries for their authority work and publish their descriptive and bibliographic data. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense. Thank you very much for your explanation.
Yeah, there's a lot packed in there, so it's...
Hi, I'm Magnus Elliot from Sweden. I'm working with Wikidata. And my background is that I've been working with banking system. I've been a Scrum Master. And then you speak about communication, communication, communication.
Yes.
And you mention it in one line, and I think it should be one slide. What I miss is that we have platforms, so you can do trackable items, so you can coordinate things between different institutions. If you're going to do linked data seriously, you need to agree that this is the term we use. I will implement it on Monday. When will you implement it, and so on. And I don't see those platforms today.
Yeah, I think the lack of tools is one of the main things. I had limited space on a slide. I was tempted to put the communicate, 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 because that really is very important for a variety of reasons, both internally within the organization, but also with your potential partners. And the other, it's barriers, you know, the struggle to define the semantics and understand the semantics of these other things, because even if you use the same vocabulary, the semantics attached to it may differ. So that is one of the barriers that is reflected in the barrier slide. But you're absolutely right that, you know, it's not just the technology, it's also the standardization, the understanding the semantics, and that's going to take time. And it's going to take time depending on how wide your scope is. You know, library domains, I know we speak very different languages, but in general, the library domain speaks more similar languages than in other domains like cultural heritage organizations or commercial. So to make that bridge will take some time.
But it's all down to cleaning the data.
Yes, the cleaning of the data.
What I see now in the Wikidata Society is everything is coming down there. With sources, bad sources, no sources, and you don't know what to trust.
Yes.
So if you're going to trust something, you need to have sources.
Yes.
Why are you saying this? And if I don't understand, I have to ask you. And then we start back to this communicate, communicate. So I think it's enormous big problem.
Yes. There are ways of, even now, to check the source and provenance. Trustworthiness of the source is like key to most libraries and cultural heritage organizations. So for example, in VF, you know, we keep the provenance of each, what is the source of each heading. And if you use Wikidata, you know that for any statement you make, you can put the source and the URL for that source. And you can even deprecate, because sometimes even in Wikidata, there are conflicting claims for the same thing. Yeah?
But the quality of Wikidata is come see, come sa.
Well, come see, come sa. So for the come see, you know, where it's the great, you know, anybody can contribute. That's one reason why some people might want to install their own Wikibase instance, so they can sort of scope out just their contributions that are specific to their own domain.
Further questions?
Is Mia here yet? I didn't see her.
Sorry?
Did Mia come?
No, wait.
Okay. Well, then we have more questions, huh? I could have talked more slowly, huh?
So let me ask you a personal insight rather than a sort of common data, but as you looked through this stuff, did you see anything that particularly caught your eye as either a really innovative use of this or, on the other end, some very common thing that a lot of libraries seem to be doing?
Well, I think the most common thing is publishing their own catalogs as linked data. I was struck even early with the National Diet Library, whose big push for linked data was not actually to be out there in the semantic web, but just they have so many silos of resources within the National Diet Library between their authorities work, their Dewey Decimal, their bibliographic, their special collections, their archives, their audios, that they published all of that as linked data so they could consume it and present it as an integrated whole. So one of the ironies of linked data is not necessarily to let the whole world know what you want, what you have, but to inform your own constituents what you have in an integrated whole. So as I said, the biggest surprise to me was, in fact, this surge in Wikidata. I mean, Wikidata is still relatively new, right? 2012, so it's only 6 years old compared to, you know, some of these other sources, and yet that surge of people integrating Wikidata into the sources they consume was a big surprise. And the comments that accompanied that were just so enthusiastic. Now, whether this is a passing phase, and once people start doing it, they start seeing that maybe it isn't all that they aspired for, but we also used, OCLC recently completed a pilot prototype with 16 US libraries. That was the linked data Wikibase prototype, in which we installed our own instance of Wikibase. And that was really fascinating to see how catalogers who are used to putting things into a marked field changed their thinking in terms of concepts and an entity base and how things link to each other. And in fact, when I go back, I'm working with colleagues to finish up the report on that. And that might also contribute to another rise in Wikibase and Wikidata. And of course, there's a WikiCite conference happening at this moment. Well, not this moment, because it's 9 hours behind us. But in 9 hours, they will commence with another day of the WikiCite, yeah. I do think that linked data, from my personal point of view, I think my greatest aspiration for linked data is for us to be able to present information in the preferred language and script of the user. I mean, we think of not just other countries, but think of your own country. Not everybody speaks your language as a first language, even in your country. All of us have people coming in from other countries, immigrants, people who want resources in their own language. So the authority file was always considered, this is the preferred heading for the primary language of our country. But now we have people who don't speak that as the primary language. So with linked data, even if you're a Chinese immigrant in the United States, you should be able to search and retrieve things in Chinese and not have to know what the romanization is or pinyin is, or even look at the English if your objective is to look in Chinese for Chinese resources that are been described in Chinese. And you have Chinese in all your countries. Why not be able to present them in Chinese, or Arabic, or Cyrillic, or any of the other scripts? None of us are monolingual these days. So that's my greatest hope, and that should bring the world together, where language is no longer a barrier to providing access to the information that our communities need.
Thank you. Are there more questions?
Hi, you said that in the 2018 survey, the service providers came on board.
Well, they responded. I mean, they might have always been there. I mean, that's the problem with these surveys, is it depends solely on who responds to the survey. So, but it was the first time we received responses from service providers, one of which was Castellini's, the Share VDE that Michelle gave a lightning talk about yesterday, LibraryLink, with Zafara. They also provide linked data services. And then a few of the commercial ones, which actually started the survey, and a number of them sent me emails saying, the questions are too geared towards academic and libraries, and we can't fit our commercial things, but they provide linked data services for a fee for customers. So to the extent that there are these service providers, then you could ask, why would any individual research library or institution publish its own linked data and go through all of that problems of converting legacy data and so forth, if there's a service provider that you could just pay a fee for and they would publish your linked data for you. So that is new. New to me, going back to Jim's question.
Okay, so thank you very much again.
Okay, thank you.
We have notice from Mia, she will be here after 10 o'clock, so we would now reschedule a coffee break and have the coffee break now and afterwards the keynote. So please be back here 10 o'clock for the continuation of the program. Sorry for the